I'm going to be talking about the sell or die moment. Anybody have a sell or die moment in their life? Maybe. You don't have to put up your hands, but I'm going to assume maybe you did, because there are a lot of people that have set up their businesses and they've had perhaps moments of reckoning. So my presentation is going to be about what gets in the way of business owners when they are responsible for creating their own revenue. And then we're going to talk, when they have to sell or die. And then eventually we're going to talk about the strategies. But right now, we're going to talk about what does it feel like when you're in the sell or die moment. Well, I've had the opportunity to explore that. As a very young sales manager, I was 6 as well. I was a branch manager for Quebec for liquid paper. And I noticed that my salespeople would really have great sales if they felt good about both their personal and business endeavors. And if they didn't, then we really struggled. And very early on, I realized that there was a tie between our emotional well-being and our results. And that's fascinated me all of my life, to the point that some of you may know, I wrote Monday morning referral tips, and eventually I've written a book about what it's like to be in the sell or die moment. So when I was preparing for this, I thought, I've already thought and written about this. So with your indulgence, I would like to read from my book about what my sell or die moment was. Is that okay? This is my coming out as a writer, so scary. All right. But some of you might recognize some elements about my story. And remember, I was a sales executive. I'd already I understood what it was like to create revenue for a company. Very different order when you're creating revenue for yourself. So this is what happened to me. In retrospect, I had been bored, truly bored with the routine of my role as an executive. My work had become soulless. I was losing my joie de vivre. I was in, I won't say what age, my personal responsibilities had diminished somewhat. I had worked forever to support others, it seemed. I was living in dangerous times for my own selfhood, and it was time to move on. To move on to the life that I really wanted, where I could do what you love and let the money follow, find my bliss, and live happily ever after. I see a few smiles there. I could experience the zen of working for my own creativity and be rewarded for my courage by unimaginable wealth. I knew that having my own consulting business was what I wanted. I could do it. I had lots to offer, and I was going to get out there and grab it by the tail. I was brimming with conviction, passion, experience, and of course, confidence. Except I wasn't. Brimming with confidence, that is. Not only was I not full of confidence, I was missing a lot of it. In fact, I had none left. I realized that I was terrified. Terrified of actually living by my own wits, of what I had always dreamed of doing. How could this be? What the devil was getting in my way? Overnight, I had realized the true private hell of the professional service provider. The private hell that can take over your soul when you are suddenly the brand. Everything that I would say or do became the object of public scrutiny. Even more serious and debilitating was the fact that everything I said or did became the object of my own scrutiny. And I was bitterly unhappy with what I saw about myself. I was forcing myself, teeming with self-doubt and sweat, to attend the same networking events that I embraced wholeheartedly as a corporate executive. I questioned everything that I was doing and everything that I said. I talked too much about my business and threw out a lot of meaningless phrases. And I knew it. And I made people mistakes that I would never have dreamt of making during my corporate life. I was burning relationships with former business clients and colleagues by overselling and overcompensating. I could see that I was not clear about my message, and I disliked myself for my lack of definition. I was my brand, and with each passing day of being my brand, I fell deeper and deeper into my own spiral of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, known as FUD in the training world. I've never forgotten the special form of terror that I felt at the beginning of my consulting career. I came to realize that when you are the brand, the real battle is within. So that was my experience with the Saboteurs. And so I developed a book that's called the Saboteurs, those negative thoughts that hurt you and your business. So let's just have a look at these lovely negative thoughts. Let's just look at our thoughts. Anybody have any idea how many thoughts we have every day?
10 million.
Not quite 10 million, said by a true accountant. That's pretty impressive, though. No, we have fewer thoughts than that per day.
60,000 is what I heard.
60,000, okay, or between 50 and 60,000. We have a lot of thoughts per day. Does anybody want to harbor a guess at what percentage of those thoughts are negative? It must feel like it some days. 98? Well, somewhere between 80 and 90% of our thoughts are negative, if you can imagine. So, I mean, there's reasons for that. When we grew up in our formative years, we heard a lot of don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And so ultimately, we ended up carrying a lot of negative thoughts. So when you think about it, 80, 90% of our 50 to 60,000 thoughts, how many negative thoughts do we have every day? Well, we have about 40,000 negative thoughts per day. So when we consider a new enterprise and we start a new business, we go through transition, there's a lot of opportunity for those negative thoughts to come out. They're there anyway. So you can imagine that we're very, very vulnerable at those moments. So here's what I thought about further about that. Learning more about coaching allowed me to admit to my own fears, and it became easier to recognize those fears in others as I encountered people in my own network. I began to study the emotions within myself and others with a morbid fascination. I eventually could give a name to these wretched feelings which occur when transition conspires with the sudden you are the brand reality to create a full-blown identity crisis. I christened these horrible beings, these embodied fears, as the saboteurs. I started to share my experiences with the dreaded saboteurs in my weekly blogs, which I called the Monday Morning Referral Tips. I had chosen that day of the week for the arrival of my blog, as I knew all too well that the saboteurs attacked unsuspecting business professionals on Monday mornings as they tried to plan for their week. As I developed my Monday morning following, I stopped being surprised when seemingly confident colleagues, other professional service providers, such as lawyers, accountants, engineers, architects, business consultants, and coaches, would approach me at events to tell me that I had really put my finger on their agony in the most recent tip. One time I had two professional service providers, an accountant on my left, a lawyer on my right, both pouring their hearts out about their own personal saboteurs at the same time. Thank heavens for noisy networking rooms. So we harbor these thoughts, we have a lot of negatives, and why now when we least need these negative thoughts when we start our own business? Well, let's consider the fact that because most business professionals underestimate the task at hand when it comes to creating their own revenue. They are in effect scaling Mount Everest when it comes to creating your own revenue. You need to be fully packed. You don't wear your spring coat out at Everest. You have all sorts of equipment properly reinforced. You have a plan, you are organized, and you are understanding that you have a journey. So scaling Mount Everest is not a walk in the park. It's not easy to create your own revenue. You need to be prepared for this journey, and you need to understand that it's ongoing. As long as you want to create revenue for yourself, you need to be learning and growing and all the things that we're going to talk about. So I thought about a lot of philosophers that I could turn to just sort of crystallize what I want to say to you about this. But I decided to go to the famous philosopher Meatloaf to really talk about what this is like. And so in terms of managing your own expectations, I got to go with the meat when he says, but there ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. You know, it's not easy to create your own revenue. It involves a lot of preparation. So no wonder why those saboteurs are with us. No wonder why we fight them off, because really we are not well equipped. Most business professionals are not at all equipped. They're wearing their little spring coat to go up scaling on Mount Everest. So I'm just going to go to one character in my book. So this is not about anybody. This is about a composite of the pains that people experience. So this is about a character named Phil. As he spoke, he confirmed my first observation. In spite of the many business challenges that presented themselves, Phil's real problem was not his business. It was himself and his residents, his saboteurs. He had enabled them, fed and nurtured them for many years, decades in fact. And how they danced in his head. He questioned everything that he did. Watch Phil's thought patterns as he lets the saboteurs have their way with him. What day is it today? Monday? I should be cold calling, knocking on doors, going to networking events, getting a new logo. No money to pay for this. No money coming in. What am I to do? The kids. I better fix this. I'll be disappointing my friends and family again, like I always do. Maybe I'm just not good enough. Going down to a deeper spiral, hyperbolizing to a frenzy, as the saboteurs giggle with glee, he would continue. I'm no good. I should get a job, but where? I've owned my business all my life. Who would want me? Because I'm no good. I have nothing to offer. I'm unemployable. Maybe I'm just a failure, like everyone says. My family will starve. My wife will leave me. I will be homeless. That's what I deserve. I'm no good. All this because there's no business? Oh yes, when the saboteurs play, they play hard. When you least need it, when you are starting out and have no revenue, when you find yourself short on new clients, and at any time when you are vulnerable. That is when the saboteurs love to play games within your head. So this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about the saboteurs. So, why do business owners think that creating revenue should happen so easily? Well, because we have more saboteurs. First of all, we're not prepared for Mount Everest. Secondly, we have there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about sales and about networking. They are rampant and they build on saboteurs. So I came up with 5 different categories of saboteur types for my book. I had 50 saboteurs. I couldn't stand myself anymore, so I took it down to 21, and I focused in on 2 of the categories. So there are 10 saboteurs per category. So the first category is the sales saboteur category. And that's really coming from the fact that we don't really respect sales and salespeople. Now, they've earned it. You know, you try to buy a car. What kind of experience is it? To this day, it's not nice. The public trust has been abused by salespeople, desperate people who aren't trained. So we certainly need some help there. When you go into a role and suddenly you're in a sales role, you become that sleazy snake oil salesperson. And there are so many saboteurs that come with that. Not to mention our attitudes toward money and how we actually manage our relationships with our clients and how we put the true value on our services. Any shortcomings that we have about ourselves are immediately translated into the business proposition we offer. It's huge. The sales saboteurs are enormous. And then, of course, we hear all about how important it is to do networking. And there are so many myths and misconceptions. You know, one book had 49 myths and misconceptions about networking. So we have, I focused on 10 to 11 referral saboteurs. So I don't want to give out a bad referral. I don't want to receive a bad referral. I can't network, I'm an introvert. There are so many different messages that we can give to ourselves so we just don't get out and be here like this morning. So those are the 2 that I focused on, but there are many other opportunities for saboteurs. There's the sales call saboteurs. There's 10 there. So that's all about, oh, well, it's all about being a dog and pony show and sell, sell, sell. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's all about listening when you're at a sales call. And it's the whole vision of pummeling your prospect into giving you an order. I mean, there are so many perceptions about salespeople that really do need to be addressed and understood and rejected. There's the professional service saboteurs. So if you're a lawyer, accountant, engineer, architect, And suddenly you're in a role where you're responsible for creating your revenue. I went to school so I wouldn't have to sell. Well, we've got news for you. When it comes to professional service providing firms, they need your help. And if you want to be partner, you better learn how to sell. Last but not least, there's all the personal saboteurs that we all have. So our parents aren't perfect, and we aren't perfect as parents. So there's lots of messages that we're giving to ourselves as well. So now that I've thoroughly taken you down to perhaps your own experiences creating revenue for yourself, I'd like to lift us up a little bit by talking about very quickly creating a setting for the strategies for getting rid of the saboteurs. So as I developed my knowledge about training and coaching, I realized how important all of these structures, processes, tools that we're going to be talking about today, how critical they were to ensuring our success. So the first one to always keep in mind is to embrace new business development as a journey. It's ongoing, it doesn't stop, and it really needs to be your number one priority always. It is your lifeblood. It's what you do first. You dedicate 20 hours a week and you block that time in first before you do anything else. Paperwork is secondary, always new business development is first. That's a hard paradigm for a lot of business professionals. Seek help, as Adrian mentioned. Learn about new business development. Never stop learning about it. Learn about training and coaching, and good for you, you're here today to learn about Sell or Die. ABL, always be learning about new business development. Other considerations, keep accountable. You need a friend. Have a program or a coach to assist with your daily accountability and to help you with your direction as your business grows. And last but not least, take good care of yourself. Here's a quote, second last, penultimate quote from my book. The saboteurs are challenged to find a home in a robust, healthy, and happy body. So self-care is very critical. So to sign off, I'd like to give you what I said at the end of my foreword. It actually was ironic because I had written it when I looked at the date when I finished my foreword. It was the date of the founding of my business, several years earlier. So suffice to say that there is much needed help available to manage this internal battlefield. Business professionals need to seek out all the help they can get. These are perilous waters. For those who have the courage to live by their wits and embrace the world where you are the brand, I want you to know that you are never alone. Thank you very much.